can. Everything's still good for you?
Everything's great here. Thank you. How about with you?
It is all good.
It is all good. You know, I spent 26 years in Los Angeles and watching the destruction, and I have friends who lost homes, and the just the massive destruction in Los Angeles has been profound.
Yes, yeah, we're seeing it on the news here. Yeah, over 1,000 homes. Wow. So you have friends who've lost their homes in the fire?
I do. And my brother was between two fires, and so his wife said that the winds were so strong that the windows were rattling. Uh, but they're fine.
Right.
Well, you met him, Steve.
Oh, right. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It changes our way we see things when we know people who are there, hey? See it a bit differently.
Oh, yeah, it hits in a much deeper place. I actually had some reactivity come up around it. It's really kind of funny because uh, I was sitting down to breakfast with my husband, and all of this was present. This that people were losing their homes, that people that I knew that were in danger physically, um, and then somehow Trump entered into it and his upcoming taking the presidency. And before I knew it, I wanted to flee the country. It just came up that I wanted to flee the country, and there was a belief that my husband was holding me back from doing that.
Oh, well,
And as soon as the belief was there that he was holding me back, I it became self and other. And other was to blame. And he put too much jam on his toast. And because he's diabetic, that's what set it off. Too much jam on the toast. And what it was about was feeling, you know, this wanting to escape and feeling trapped in a country, that kind of feeling.
mm,
So yeah, just allowing all of that to be.
yeah, it's a big one, isn't it?
It is. And then I saw, gee, there's just nowhere to run to. There's
It's a
nowhere to
bit
go.
like that. Yeah, the whole world. Yeah,
There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run to. It's just sink in here. You're always in the right place. We're always in the right place, unless we're not. Uh,
it's reasonable to expect that some of the old conditioning is going to
oh,
show itself, and escape has always been our go-to from pain, from suffering, and in a way, it it could be. So just, I mean, my experience in Australia of those fires, um, and I did hear something in the background that I don't know how accurately I heard it, that Trump wanted to take water away from the people who needed it to fight the fires. I didn't
Well,
quite get it. He was something about he wanted the
I,
water for something else.
I'm not aware of that, but Trump is not. Trump is, he's not for California in
No,
general,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
And he
So
wouldn't
he
be
would not be
federal
offering.
control anyway, would it? It'd be state control rather than federal water and what
Well, no,
that.
it's both. I think it's
Oh,
both
okay,
federal
yeah.
and local. So yeah, but just the fact that he probably wouldn't lift much of a finger to help California.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, at least that's my conjecture.
yeah,
That's my
yeah.
impression because I don't
Well,
really know.
God does these things to people who aren't on his side. So
Say that again?
God does things to people who are not on his side. You know, God will make put those fires there because they didn't support Trump.
From his perspective.
From his perspective, and I'm joking, of course, in
Yeah, yeah,
a sarcastic manner. Yeah,
yes.
that's the way I imagine he would see it. In that peanut of a brain that he's got. It's
Yeah. And I also was listening to a satsang, um, man who was talking, brought a concern about politics, and I could see how even this subtle sense of other is, you know, it just it's a red flag, making anyone wrong. It just really kind of misses the mark. To even in my, it I just saw politics as just a great opportunity to kind of rub up against what wants to fall away some more.
mm, for sure. Yeah, yeah.
You
Making
know?
somebody wrong is about making us right, and that's identification, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, good.
for sure. Yeah. Hmm. And I do some of that myself.
Well, this young man was in the satsang and he's gay and he was really upset because he felt that, the gay population had made such movement and such strides that they could marry now and have families, and that he felt that that was going to be taken away, and
Yep,
they
yep,
were going to go we were going to go backwards in that regard.
yep, yep.
And
Yeah,
it was wonderful watching him come to a place of peace and with that and losing that sense of that other is going to do that, or
yep.
it was quite a transformation to observe.
Yeah, isn't it weird that good things come out of bad things?
And the person who was leading the satsang, Tom something, I can't remember his last name, but he spoke about, he shared that story about the farmer
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
good luck, bad luck. But he told it in a way that the neighbor comes and says, "Oh, that's bad luck," and he put it in the context of current, social media and friends and family and all of those voices that come at us, giving us agreement or disagreement, or
yep, yeah,
and
yeah,
and in
yeah.
that context, it just brought that old story that we've heard so many times into present context, and it was just lovely.
Mm.
Yeah, we're in these sound silos with hearing, you know, whatever it is we hear.
Yeah, it's a cacophony. It's really loud and really insistent, and technology has made it so hard to avoid, really. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, not that we need to avoid it, but we do need to adjust our relationship to it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what about feeling um, compassion for people who are in a unenviable situation? Is that the same thing? Are we still identifying if we do that? Is it we still making an other to feel compassion for?
I don't know, but I think innocence cuts through everything. That we're all innocent. I think it just cuts through everything. It's like there's no place to land with innocence. It's like, yeah, there's just no place to land with it. Um, and it certainly allows, when the viewing of other as other comes up, you know, being present to the innocence just dissolves it all because nobody's to blame for any of it and nobody's the cause of any of it. And so, nobody chose their beliefs. Nobody, when you see how everyone is just, we are all just the result of conditioning and
Yeah,
that it's there's freedom in that, in the innocence.
yeah. So so if we're feeling compassion for wh- what we imagine is happening because of the news reports, etc., of what we, so we feel we have a certain feeling, a reaching out feeling of something. It's got to be compassion, maybe, but for let's say for the people in Gaza and what they're going through, um, that we can. So if we feel that compassion from a place of innocence, maybe compassion is happening and there's nobody feeling it. Maybe that there isn't identification. There could be, or there might not be. But if we're from a place of innocence, that is just what happens, and we're not owning it per se. So there's not identification with that. Then isn't it legitimate to consider that we might feel what, anger or disgust or fear when we consider the news on the other side, when we consider what's going on in American politics at the moment? We might feel disgust or loathing or wrongness or something like that from about that. And we also feel that from a place of innocence and not have identification with it.
Oh, well, no, I guess not, because if you're loathing something, then obviously there's attachment there, yeah. Or judging it as wrong. Yeah, of course.
Right. So when we feel in compassion, we're judging that as wrong. We're judging that as something to be sad about.
Mm, judging compassion is wrong.
No, judging what a situation that we can that produces compassion.
Oh, uh-huh. What about that?
Is it possible to experience that from a place of innocence? That is
Yeah.
where it's just happening and there is not identification going on. We're not saying that's wrong in order to bolster
Right.
our own sense of self,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, of course. Yes, yes, of course. Compassion from a place of innocence.
But so it's also then, if compassion from a place of innocence is okay, silly thing to say, but you get what I mean. So is
Yeah.
loathing. So is loathing if that turns up, or or whatever.
Mhm.
But it seems
Mhm.
like obviously there's much more. It's much more likely that we're judging the negative one. They're both
Right.
negative, but one of them produces a sense of compassion, and the other one produces a sense of, well, for me, it's a sense of disgust. The
Hmm.
way I see the world going in particularly with American presidential rubbish, there is a sense of disgust that I experience, or,
Yes.
wrongness would be a better way to put it. So I'm
Well, yeah,
judging it. I'm judging it when
yeah,
I say that. Yeah.
for here it's sadness. It's sadness that 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 it's going in that direction. But by the same token, then,
But
I don't
sadness
know.
about my stories. I mean, it could all work out really good, couldn't it? But my
Of
stories
course.
are that no, it's going to be another Handmaiden's Tale set up really soon.
Right. No, but coming from that we don't know how anything will turn out, then if loathing arises,
It's obvious
it's
that it's about my story.
yes, I see. Yes. It's not about the external.
Hmm.
It's about the story about the external, or what appears to be the external. Yeah?
Yeah, but that's also the case with the compassion about the people in Gaza. There's definitely an other created, and there's a story about that, and the resulting reaction is sadness and compassion,
Mm-hmm.
still identification.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
That brings up another story, which is really sad. That if I don't have any emotions about that, that's even worse, isn't it? Is it? I don't know.
Layer after layer. Oh my gosh.
I mean, it would seem to me if I can think about the people in Gaza and not be moved at all, that's a pretty sad state. But if I am moved, I'm identifying and creating another.
There's no win there. Uh,
Well, I don't know. See, there may be ins and outs of this that I just haven't picked up on. I can accept that this is a really complex issue, isn't it?
yeah.
I mean, how strongly do we have this idea of this is right and that is wrong? It's such a
Yeah.
big deal for us all the time, right to our core. We have,
Yeah.
pleasure is good, pain is bad.
And it's so interesting to see also that how different it is with family and friends who've lost, well, friends who've lost their homes at the LA fires. And what is felt here is different than what is felt for the people in Gaza because
Yes.
it's more intimate. It's closer to home. It hits differently.
Yeah. Well, you know people
It,
in LA, but you don't know anybody in Gaza, I presume. But yeah.
yeah,
So it's
it
easier
just
to
hit.
distance it as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is.
And I have a lot of American friends now as a result of these groups, and I think you all should come to Australia. But I've got American friends here in Australia, and they want Australia to be like America, it
Yeah.
seems. So, but they would never go back to America. But they want
Can you
Australia to
guys
be
hear
like
me?
America in so many ways. Yeah. It's interesting.
it almost appears that, that there is this like what's happening in Canada as well with, and what happened in England with wanting to exit, you know, uh, the European Union, and this stark divide that happens within countries where
Yes. Mm.
there's two sides, and that seems to be happening so much more like
World
globally,
world over. Yes, I agree. Yeah.
yeah, this divide, and what is that about?
So
And
maybe, just maybe, the really one really good thing that might come out of this Trump thing is that governments realise that the way they've been working hasn't been doing the job. It's creating a divide and splitting up people, and we're getting these super rich people and a lot of poor people. There's always been enough food in the world to feed everybody, but when I was a kid and I told my mum to send cabbage to Africa, she wouldn't do it. So the problem is distribution, isn't it? And that's
as a
all to
kid,
do
I
with
used
profit. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally. I used to think as a kid, if there was no food in Africa, why didn't they leave there and go where the food was? Why did they stay? If there was no food there, go where the food is. That was my thinking as a child.
Yep, yep, yep.
Because
And then when they did that as refugees, they got rejected by every
yes,
country they went to.
yes. And so, I have friends who are, liberal. They were, devastated by the Trump win. And I keep saying, you don't know. Be in the don't know mind. You have no idea what will come of it. We have no idea. So that helps that helps me to just stay in the not knowingness of it and not thinking
That's
that I
good.
know
Yeah.
more than I do.
Mm. What are you saying no to, Maya?
To my question,
Right,
maybe.
we didn't. Yeah, we didn't hear Marius right now.
All right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now we hear you though. Yes.
yeah, great. I just wanted to weigh in on something there that um, any kind of interpretation of the situation, any opinion that we have about what's happening is a form of identification. So if we could just meet it uh, without the story, like we will have a reaction to whatever is happening and just be with the reaction rather than being with the story. I think that's the right place to be. And of course, there is a subtle identification in the reaction, but if we don't attach an interpretation of what we're feeling, it stops there. Does that make sense?
Mm. So are you saying, or I am saying, that until or maybe never, but kind of like the story goes something like, until I get fully enlightened, I'm still likely to have reactions to stories that come up. Stories will still appear, opinions will still happen.
In form of reactions, yes.
Yeah,
But
well,
if
the
we can see
reaction
them,
will show me that a story has occurred.
yeah.
So I'm not expecting to be free of stories yet, maybe. Um, but there's a saving grace in recognizing that it's just my story that I'm reacting to.
Yes, and I would even go so far as to say, well, at least in most cases, the reaction is just a bodily reaction, and then we attach a story that interprets the bodily reaction. So there's a story underneath that is kind of the ground work or the pillars of the actual bodily reaction, that we're not aware of, maybe.
Mm.
And then we're feeling the sensation, and then we're interpreting the sensation with a new story.
Yep, yep, yeah, I get that.
So if we stop that new story, we just be with the reaction, and we don't need to find out why we react in that way. We just, that's how we are conditioned, and we just stay with that.
Just to clarify, the story that's underneath, do you think that the story that comes with the interpretation has to do with the story underneath or not?
It can, but it also doesn't have to. So that's why I don't believe, like some people believe that it's valuable to kind of assign a meaning to that. I tend to believe the opposite. I tend to believe that we just look at the reaction for what it is, a reaction, and then stop it there. So
Yeah,
instead of kind of guessing or giving a half truth of what it is about, we don't engage it at all. That's kind of my standpoint on it.
yeah. So the story I do have, is that exactly what you say, that there is some fundamental belief that creates the reaction, and then we adopt a story to explain that. So putting any attention on that story that we create, that will be created by itself to explain it, putting having a relationship with that story that says it's true, uh, is very much a identification process that's going on. It's selfing, but that story. Well, put it this way: that reaction before the story happens, that reaction is an attempt to escape or to distract from the underlying thing.
Yeah.
So if we just recognize that there is an underlying thing, not what it is, we don't have to find out any details of it, but if we recognize that there is something there, I want to say presumably, but I think it will be the case that if we don't go chasing it per se, but we're open to recognizing that something is going on there, we'll get a kind of a flavor for it. And if we just if the reaction has a certain kind of flavor to it, just simply seeing it and being aware that there's a reaction and we're not taking it any further may well be enough for that to never come back, to be ended. But if that whatever is underneath there is more intense, say, then we may well have repeats of this particular situation again and again and again, in which case it may well be worth going a little further. But the reaction will be the portal or the doorway into whatever that story is that's underneath there. And I suspect we will all come up against that particular one at some point. Now, all those just remnants of selfing, they'll go the moment they're seen, but those ones that repeat themselves, they could be worth looking at. Again, not necessarily to chase down the details of what it is, although that may be helpful. The mind will always say there's satisfaction in doing that, but that's just the mind again. So I don't know
Yeah, and I
how that
think
fits with you, Marius.
no, I think you're on point, but there's one thing that I probably look differently at, and is if that thing comes back again and again and again, what we're doing by not engaging in the story is learning to be with strong emotions again and again and again. So our kind of,
Yep,
what's the
yep.
word?
We could
Capacity.
desensitize to it.
Yes. Yes.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I get that. I'll go along with that one. Yeah. So of course there are
So
all
kind
variations from really trivial stuff to really big deal stuff, and so this everything is so unique, isn't it?
yeah, I think that like there, it's our tendency to not, I'm not going to say being able, because I am able, and I think, but our tendency to not want to live with an understanding of not understanding. Like we need to assign meaning. We need to kind of, like, there is
Yeah, yeah,
something that needs to understand. And if we could just see that happening when it's happening, and then by seeing that, just dropping it,
yep,
I,
yeah,
I think for me that's been the way to go.
yeah. Well,
You
that's a good one too. I think that's an important one because that habitual need to understand, need to be able to explain things is pretty strong identification stuff, isn't it? And I've seen myself attracted to looking for some crazy stuff sometimes, just wanting to read what that number plate on the car in front of me is. Why the hell would I want to know that? You know? But there is that promise of some satisfaction if I can actually make out the letters. Yeah? And then when I've got it, it's gone. 5 minutes later, 1 minute later, ask me what it was, I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Bringing what Marius is saying back to my experience of my husband putting too much jam on his toast and that being the thing that just blows everything up it was this feeling, and I'm seeing how this is a really deep one. It is it's a total threat that here this reality in Los Angeles that used to be my reality uh, is just gone. And then this it's like you were saying, Marius, is the ability to just stay with the discomfort, just wanting to flee and feeling like my husband is the one who's keeping me because he can't leave the country. And so it's like there's this, I can see how this is an early, very early, very this desire to this need to flee for safety. It's this feeling of not being safe and needing to flee to go someplace where it's safe. And then seeing that, boy, the safety is right here always, or not. I mean, there's nowhere externally you're going to go for safety. So I think that this is just a very deep. I'm glad that you mentioned, how these can be so repetitive when they're really deep. Of not feeling safe. That's what it comes down to. This and who is it that's not feeling safe?
And
Exactly.
what would it be like to feel safe, or what would it take to feel safe? Is it dependent on our environment? Do we need to be in a safe room to feel safe?
I
Yeah.
I I'm kind of drawn to point out that safety is also an illusion. So I mean, like that I understand
Mm.
our wanting to be safe, but even though we want to be safe, and that's attractive, it's not really a given that
Yeah.
safety
So
is there.
so danger, danger, present danger would be actual. Okay, you can see the fire approaching, and there's a lion chasing you, whatever. That's danger. Lack of that isn't safety. Safety is just a concept that gets overlaid the lack of danger.
Yes.
Mhm.
But we do remember this, that part of the brain, hippocampus, is it? I think whatever that part says, we either fight or we flee or we freeze. That's primitive survival stuff. So you can see how it feeds into the desire to flee. It happens at a bodily level when danger is perceived, and the brain doesn't know the difference between imaginary danger and actual danger. It takes them both to be real.
And so this is what when I think I've mentioned this before, but this is what I see as biological programming. So it's two types of programming, right? There's psychological and biological, but both can still be recognized,
Mm,
right? Both can still be seen at as this is happening, and this is my conditioning.
yes, yep. I mean that's why um, the dramatic what do you call it? You know, the horrible stuff on the news gets people's attention because it excites that primitive safety survival thing.
Yeah.
And so we don't have saber-toothed tigers any longer, but we have potentially invasive neighbours or whatever. Yeah, and that's interesting when you say about the biological stuff. I agree with that, and I can rather imagine that maybe that's a way of describing cellular memory. You know, the stuff that we stories that we believed before further back than we can remember, but we still react to, become a biological process. You know, that we still react to them because it's held in the body, those memories.
Yeah, it's a nice conceptual way to
Yeah,
describe it. That
it's
like
a
that
story. That's
could
right. Yeah.
this could also that is the same way as with DNA or like
Yep.
um yeah.
Well, we now know there's a lot more. It's even more complex than that. I mean, a study from a long time ago, a psychological study, showed that women who were in concentration camps had granddaughters with eating disorders. And you think, how the hell did it get? And some of those women were in concentration camps for as short as a couple of weeks at the end of the war, and yet their daughters had eating disorder. Their granddaughters had eating disorders, and it turned out it was what do you call it? Um, I forget the name of it, but it's what turns genes on. Genes DNA stuff gets activated because of this stuff, and that's what gets passed along, and that's why PTSD people have their relatives and that come out with all sorts of things as wrong as well as it gets hardwired into the body because of living constantly in stress situation or something. I'm rambling now.
Yeah, it's okay. But I also want to say, like, there's two parts of me here, right? One part that would happily engage with that story you just told, you're rambling, and there's another part that wants to point out that yeah, that is a story that could explain this, but why, why, why engage in that? Because we really don't know. Why can't we
Mm.
just be with what is here now?
Well, yeah, good point.
it's the mind again that wants to
Mhm.
engage in understanding and stories. So it's fun. There's nothing wrong with it, but
Yeah,
we're
and also it doesn't get us anywhere sometimes. I don't know, maybe it does. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Marius, you're saying that this need to understand is what drives all of that.
yeah, I think so. It seems so. And it's very sneaky. Like we were just talking about it then, and then suddenly the stories come back into it to describe DNA and all sorts of things when we really don't know. We don't know anything, and that's okay.
We don't, but I found that very interesting. Very interesting how, yeah, is there anything wrong with something being interesting and recognizing at the same time, you know, the way the mind wants to understand?
Yeah, I think that's the key, having that awareness.
Mhm. Yeah, so anytime the mind zips off into, you know, that kind of exploration, just recognizing it for what it is, it can also be enjoyable to do that little journey as long as you're not lost in it.
Yes. And I think part of being like part of the importance of being aware is that it can easily form an opinion or a standpoint or a point of view that suddenly suggests that there's someone here, someone with a separate or unique opinion or whatever you want to call it from what is. So it reinforces that sense of self.
Yeah.
Yes, not having a position, not having any place to land, not having really even an opinion about something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But where we are at our level, blah blah blah. Well, it, opinions still happen. Stories
yeah.
still happen.
But I think by pointing this out, like we're doing together now, might contribute to our conditioning to seeing that, right?
Yep.
So it's just the other day when I was responding to a post on Facebook about nihilism or a reaction of nihilism to this apparent journey we're on. I experienced that, and then because of my experience, I had opinions about it, and so I was engaging in a conversation where I caught myself arguing for my opinion,
Yep. Yep.
and I could feel the energy of that. I could feel like the contracting, limiting energy of that, and I'm like, whoa, okay, I actually don't know anything. This is just my opinion.
Yep.
So it took me out of that again and back into an expansive openness, which I prefer to be in.
Yep. 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 And so, as from what you were saying a bit earlier, that is going to decondition you to some extent, lose the habit of
Yes.
having an opinion about these things. Yeah. So, um, with that in mind, having an opinion, that phrase in mind, I want to ask you, Maya, what's left for you to wake up? unless it
I
happened
really
since we
don't
last spoke.
know. I really don't know. But now listening to Marius telling how he caught himself reacting, I think I think I would catch myself reacting more often than not. I think I can really do that now.
Yep, yep.
Uh,
So
Catch myself reacting,
can you incorporate
having
into
opinions.
a story that you can be awake and still react, but you will likely catch yourself reacting when you do?
Now that I'm a part of this group for a few months, I think, uh, I understand that it's not a matter of zero and one. So maybe, yes, awakened people may have reactions and
Hmm.
there may be something pushing them over the edge at moments, but then you come back again. You come back again much quicker and easier than before. Before
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I would stay enraged for days. No, not anymore, not anymore. And
Mm.
this morning I thought, okay, I'm not awakened, right? Okay. But somehow I'm content with all the things I've learned because I'm suffering less. There's less reactivity. There is less. I can recognize opinions. I can be calmer. And I thought if this is all there is, I'm fine. I'm already better than I was. So this is where I would say I am now. Although it would be, you know me, it would be exciting to have more, to go deeper and everything. This is a game for me. Everything's a game for me. Everything is a challenge, and I enjoy it so much. I
Yep.
enjoy challenges.
Well, that's the same for
So
me. I feel the same kind
yeah,
of thing. It would be great to go deeper, to find more, to get freer, even. I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
But I
that's
see.
the important distinction. I just want to say that you think the feeling of it is curiosity and kind of a lightness rather than a grasping and a searching and a desperation.
Yeah, I thought of Craig the other day, if you remember. Uh, he, it was such a heavy feeling. He was in a difficult place somehow. And I thought, oh, I never feel this heaviness. It's always a game. It's always a game. I was watching my mom. It's really a hard thing to watch. But I spent 2 days with her now. And at some point I thought, oh, she's like a child. She's really like a child. Why do we, why do we laugh when children make mistakes, tell something funny? It's so funny because we expect them to evolve, and I don't expect from my mom anything anymore. But the situation is just the same. It's just the meaning I'm assigning to it. It was funny. It was funny what she did, and well, I can laugh. I can really laugh in difficult situations. I know this from my own difficult situations. So, I don't know. I do have something now. I do have something. I have more than I had a few months ago. If I'm enlightened or not, I would say no because there was no wow moment like with Scott or something. I didn't have something like that. But if this is all there is, fine. But I'll play the game. I'll keep playing the game, I think, till I die,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
whatever comes.
Okay, so you've heard me say this stuff before, but it's worth repeating. So when you might say you when you might when you might describe yourself as awakened, you just got to laugh every time you say that kind of thing. You know, you just got to
Yeah,
realize
yeah.
that it's a total joke. You know, there is no what is it?
There's
You know,
nothing.
yet there
There's
is
nothing.
something that says if you see yourself. I wrote a whole story about this that I used when I was guiding a lot. But I frequently come across people who have all of the hallmarks of being awake, yet they think they're not awake. And the the consequence of that is that there's a different perspective on life. Whereas if they accept that they are awake, they don't need to repeat it, they don't need to tell anybody. But even if they just talk about that as an awake person, there's a totally different perspective on what goes on. And it enables change. It enables some kind of movement in a adaptive direction. Um, and the whole point of saying that is that, you know, of course, you already appear to have that way of looking at things, that different perspective, that awake perspective. And you know, a lot of people that they when they're in that situation say, I don't know, I don't know if I'm awake. I don't think I'm awake. Right? I have doubts, and you don't have any doubts. You are absolutely certain that you're not awake. There's no doubting anywhere.
I also want to add to that very important thing that Vince is talking about here is your comment about not experiencing something like Scott, for example. I think if we kind of look at what really happened to Scott, or apparently really happened from a different lens, is that Scott had an epiphany, he had an insight that excited him. He saw something differently. And we got to experience his excitement of that particular insight. There wasn't a big moment of like, it was one big insight that felt exciting, that probably felt exciting because of something particular in his conditioning um, that loosened from this particular insight. And then when we listen to that, um, we're kind of feeling into the energy of it and creating an image or a story or a fantasy about like this magical shift that just happened for Scott. But it was just an
Yeah.
insight.
Okay. If you say it like that, I remember having a moment like this years ago, many, many years ago. This is the first time I realized I'm not my thoughts. And it was really an insight, a strong insight at the moment. It held me for months. I was excited for months. I'm not my thoughts, and my emotions are not the boss of me. This was the insight.
Exactly. So if we had a meeting a day or two after that and somebody listened to your
Yeah.
story explaining that, it would set up a
It'll be another Scott experience. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
But I
So,
do
so
hope to have some more. I do hope to have some more because it's exciting. It's fun.
yeah, yeah. Look, I will guarantee they will continue for you. That's my story anyway.
Thank
Yeah. So I have another story that just explains things again. It's just we're wandering off again. I guess, but people like so when you know I searched for 45 years or something, and but in that searching, I went through an awful lot of stuff. I did a lot of encounter groups. I did Gestalt therapy. I did all sorts of things. And I even, you know, anyway, regardless. But as a result of that, a lot of stuff got churned up and seen, you know. So you could also take people who have years and years of therapy. and so on. Well, it's unlikely that when they have a shift that it's going to be one of those, it's going to be a psychedelic experience because they've already done all the work, you see. Whereas for somebody like Scott, we shouldn't talk about him now that he's not here, but he won't mind, I don't think. The shift is there's a relative thing. Right? So he's gone from one extreme to the other, and it's a big shift, and so that's where the excitement is. It's a huge thing. Whereas if he'd done all that work before, it would be a fairly minor kind of thing. That final little bit that takes him into something, whatever that was that he saw. You know, it's a. I suspect it's proportional to our experience, how big a shift we might have or not have. And because of what you went through years ago, I mean, just think about it. You experienced a sudden realization that you are not your thoughts. Now I could tell you that same story in a whole lot of different ways, right? If you are not your thoughts, what are you? Are you anything substantial? Do you exist at all? That's all inherent in the realization that you're not your thoughts. So that's a foundation that you've been living with for years. And consequently, you've already been seeing the world from a different perspective than what you did before you had that realization, than what most people in the world view the world through, that perspective of theirs. So this has been sneaking up for a long time.
Yeah. And what happened for me, I have several friends, and when I talk to them in their difficult moments, I told them, you know what helps me? It helped me to see that I'm not my thoughts. And some of them reacted, wow, it was an opening moment for them. I see
Yeah,
myself spreading it. Some don't hear it, so okay, it's not for them. But some do really
yeah.
react and come the other time
Some are,
saying, oh, what you said, it
yeah,
was such a small thing, but it got me somehow
yeah,
thinking about it. It got me
rock their
starting.
world. Yeah. And those who
Mhm.
didn't hear it are just simply not ready. You know, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. So this kind of situation we've been discussing with about people who basically have most of their they've got it pretty much, you know, but still don't think they're awake. Dennis is another classic example of that. Are you there, Dennis? Um, you know, he can talk the talk, but he thinks he's not awake. And it's really hard to not want to convince him that he is awake. He's got to recognise that, and then as soon as he goes, okay, I'm there, we'll all start laughing because there is nowhere.
Yeah, and I want to share something around that actually, because I was thinking about this when thinking about Dennis the other day. Um, there was a time on this, like right after I went through the gate of LU, I had doubt, or even before I had doubt. And then there was a moment where a question arose in regards to what if I just try to let the belief that I'm awake, like what if I just try that on, and just drop the disbelief that I'm awake and just try on, okay, I'm awake, and believe that. And there was yeah, that kind of shifted something for me. Like it was just a dropping of the disbelief. the allowance of just, okay, maybe this is it actually. That
Yeah.
kind of did it for me.
I could
So yeah.
I could try it. I was listening to someone. I started listening to all kinds of people again. I was listening to someone who said, I also played with the idea that everything is inside me. And I thought, oh, it would be nice. Okay, so I tried it. Everything is inside because everything is inside me. I'm experiencing everything with my mind, with my brain. Everything has to be reconstructed in my brain for me in order for me to be aware of it. But I just didn't give it enough time yet. So
Yeah. It's a tricky
as
one, of
well.
course,
So
that, because how do you can't really choose to change a belief. But so the way Marius put it was, I'll just try it on. Right. So even though
yeah,
when you try it on, there's going to be a story that hangs off it that says, you're not really, it's only a trial, you're just playing, et cetera, whatever those stories are, you can also just flick them away, just go over there and leave me alone for the moment. I want to try this. And for
yeah,
Marius, it worked. That gave him enough of a glimpse of that shift in perspective for it to stay. Yeah.
yeah.
And
I
then it
did. I
grew.
did
After
think.
that, it grew, I would say. Yes.
Yeah. Just to put a seed in the
Yes.
soil.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I tried this, like everything is in me, I I was aware of me thinking I might be convincing myself of it now. So there was a doubt that it would. So the whole story began to unfold. But I saw the story. I saw my intention to play with it. I saw everything. So if nothing comes out of it, it was just a try. It was just a play.
It's not possible for
And it,
nothing to come out of it. Something will.
yeah,
Well, whatever, could be anything, but yeah. Yeah.
this whole thing for me is like being allowed to be in a kindergarten again.
Yeah.
There are no mistakes. I can make no mistakes. I can
Yeah.
play with anything I want. There's
Yeah.
freedom. There's freedom to do what I want, and nothing's bad. There's no judging. So
Yep. And like Irene said earlier, that innocence, it it
yeah,
it just pervades everything. Yeah. And it's a fact. We are all absolutely innocent. Nobody chose to be anything. So we're all innocent.
Yeah, that couples beautifully with what I was saying with the unknown, because it's the unknown part, how I see it at least, that is the innocence. We don't really know anything.
No.
But I know that Maya's awake.
thank you.
Yeah.
I know that. She's got all
Oh,
the markings.
Yeah, so it's valuable to reconsider that doubt, which is a thing of the mind. It's a story, can never be fixed or corrected or argued against, and it's because it's a shape-shifting story. That thing. So the way I see it, to handle doubt is simply that you get bored with it, you tolerate it. It's just you don't pay any attention to it in the end. And the analogy that I use I think is a good one, is that you go to the magician show and watch him saw a woman in half, And if you, no matter how many times you go, it'll still look like he's sawing a woman in half, but you know he's not. You know your senses are lying to you. And you might go 2 or 3 times and you're really trying to figure out how he's doing it. But if you've gone 10 times, you just go, why the hell am I here? I'm just bored with all of this. It's just, no, I don't want to give any energy to it. You know, I know exactly what's going to happen. It's just boring. And that's doubt. You just get bored with doubt. You know, stop pestering me with these stupid thoughts.
And I think that if I'm going to play along with that story, I think that that's what happened when I was trying on the more exciting perspective than
Yes,
the
you
boring
ignore the
doubt.
doubts. Yeah. So that's a trick, isn't it? In order to try on that perspective, you have to pay no heed to any doubts. They can exist, but you're just not going to have a close relationship with them.
And that will happen when it happens.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm much more patient now. This thing from this morning, well, what I have now is okay. It was like settling in, but not in a bad way, but just getting calmer. Like, I don't know, sand settles in the glass of water, you know. Not a bad thing,
Hmm.
just sinking in contentment somehow and relaxing. Is this feeling? One
And the
more
next,
sentence. Oh,
here you go.
yeah, sorry. Please do.
I was just going to say, as things settle there, you'll discover that you're much more aware of what I call the magic in the world. You know, you'll focus on the details of things that you've not noticed before because you're relaxed and open and there's no pressure.
Yeah, it's easier to enjoy the world when there's no pressure. Yeah. What I wanted to say was, I have to say, I really enjoyed teaching this week.
That's a big one, is it not?
It happened. I was looking at my notes before the lesson, and there was a spark and really a sensation saying, I love this stuff. I love what I'm going to talk about today. And I went in and it was great.
Yep, yep. And I'll bet your students also picked up on that energy. Yeah,
They were live. They were live. The morning group that they at 8 in the morning, they always sleep. They're never ready to say anything, to interact. They were just boom, like light bulbs.
great, great. Yeah, yeah, that's good.
What age group do you work with, Maya?
Students 20, 21, 22,
At university.
undergraduates.
But can you see that at first glance it appears that you love this stuff? but the reality isn't that you love this stuff. The reality is that you love this stuff. Because it's not about the stuff. It's about your relationship with it. And you saw for some reason, and it may not have happened at other times, but this time there was a spark, and you got excited. Same stuff at other times you may have been, who knows, yeah. But,
Yeah, it was something more alive. I, I mean the it's about theories of translation, so it can get really boring, and I try not to make it boring when it has to be. But this time it was about interpreting, and this is something that I did not recently, but anyway, I have experience, a lot of experience in that. So this was something I came with stories. They love stories, and I, beside the theory, I told them about everything, about the times when I did well, about mishaps, about good decisions, about bad decisions for not to do them. I said to them, I had no one to tell me about that as I was studying these languages, but you have me to tell you what what you better not do. So it was so alive. It was really alive what I was telling them. And I knew in advance that it will be, it wasn't an expectation, it was a knowledge. I
mm,
knew this will be good. And it was
mm,
the morning session and the evening session. They're a bit younger, but we also did something very practical. We played. And I come into the class and I talk about something. I make the introduction and so on. And then I say, and now we get to play.
yeah. And of course, the big thing about playing, I was going to say why kids play, but I mean, it's what happens as they play is they discover things.
These are practical exercises. It's to discover. But even the word that I use, I don't think my colleagues use it to play. I think my attitude and this word, I hope it makes something for them.
Mm, it does. It engenders that sense of innocence as well. Let's find out. Let's play. Yeah. And it says something about the level of seriousness. Let's keep it light. Let's be happy. You know, you don't generally don't play in a serious way, do you? You play in a happy way. So it's a powerful
No,
word.
but it's in academia where I work, Southern Europe, you are still expected to be a distinguished person and
Oh, very serious.
use smart words and be very serious. And I don't do that. So, but I don't care anymore what my colleagues would say. So
Good. Mm.
the main point is for my students, for what I do with them, that it sticks. So
Mm.
it's the only thing I want.
Yep. Yes, I guess the story that I have that is that most teachers are fairly jaded. Uh, they're tired. They've been overworked, and kid putting up with rebellious kids is never an easy road to go down.
Yeah, at earlier stages, rebellious kids, but at later stages, administration and lots and lots of papers that normally shouldn't be part of what we do.
Mm. Yes, yeah, well, that's happened everywhere, isn't it? Paperwork becomes the important thing. Wow. Yeah. Mm. Okay, well, I think we'll wind up, eh? Unless anybody's got anything they want to bring up.
Do you have that Feder meeting today, Vince, or today for me, tomorrow morning for you?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think I might try to catch that to see
Yep.
what that's all about.
Sure. Yeah, you've got the link?
Yeah.
Great.
Vince, is the Feder retreat going on this weekend?
That is, yes. Yeah.
I thought so, but I didn't see anything. I had the dates on my calendar, but then I thought I had written to Todd to let him know, but anyway, I'm not there. But it is happening.
Yeah, it is there. Yeah, I'm there as support. Not that I've seen anybody, but yeah. I was just checked in, and it's now about 6 a.m. in New York, so
6:30.
and we're a bit out of sync with them. That's probably why I've seen nobody in the support room so far. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Great to see you and be with you.
yes, yeah,
Thank you.
it's all good. Thank you all. Yeah,
Thank you all.
okay.
Bye bye.
Keep being wonderful.